Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Lumpkin. I did want to introduce a friend here. This is one of my cats. Let me see, move it over here a little bit. This is Darfuzzle, and he's one of our most recent cats. He is a very big guy, but he's very sweet. Darfuzzle is actually a character. I don't remember if I've introduced the cat here before or what, but I'm just in case. Darth Fuzzle is actually named after a minor character in Cormac McCarthy's Child of God, just a very minor character. But anyway, he's going to sit in while I introduce um, the book that we'll be reading the next 2 weeks, Even as We Breathe by Annette uh, Saunooke Clapsaddle. Clapsaddle is a member of the Eastern Band of the Cherokee, and a little bit of context regarding the Cherokee and kind of the setting of the book and the time period that it's in is that if you're familiar with it or not, there was the expulsion of the Cherokee from the Southeast. This happened around the 1830s. During, in part, it was during Andrew Jackson's presidency when that process began. It was under Martin Buren when it actually was done. But the Cherokee Nation, in a lot of ways, they were considered one of the civilized tribes among Native Americans, and they very much, with kind of, I guess, the kind of approaching, uh, the kind of approaching threat of white Europeans settling and occupying the eastern United States, the Cherokee very much just decided we'll do that. I'm grossly oversimplifying things, but they took up business, trade. They took up enslaving people. A lot of Cherokees were particularly rich, kind of in the area of North Georgia where I lived. There was historical sites, New Echota, um, and the Chief Van House, which was where a very wealthy um, member of the Cherokee had a house, had multiple enslaved people, lived a good life, to say the least, particularly for somebody in the 1820s and the 1830s, was very rich by the standards of the era and our standards. And so you did have, and when the Trail of Tears occurred, um, it was a lot of the poor Cherokee that had to walk, that had to go by train in particularly nasty weather. If you were rich enough, you could just take a boat uh, to Oklahoma, which was where they were resettled. And you have kind of the Western band and the Eastern band. And he just wants to stick his claw right on me where I don't want him to stick it. So if I yelp or yowl, that's because of him. Anyway, try to make sure he doesn't do that. Um, and so there were, as you'll note in the novel, there were a small group of Cherokee who ended up hiding in the mountains. And one of the things we think about we think of like Cherokee, North Carolina. If you're familiar at all with the Great Smokies, if you've been to Pigeon Forge and visited the Great Smokies on the kind of Tennessee, North Carolina border, so you have the Smokies, and then to the south, kind of the southeastern part of the border, is what's called the Qualla boundary. It's not, it is a reservation, but it's kind of entitled that as such. And so basically, after years passed, there were Cherokee who were basically hiding out in the Smokies and other kind of very remote mountains, and they kind of cut a deal where they could remain there as time passed. But we still see a lot of economic opportunities get passed by from the Cherokee, from the Qualla boundary, Cherokee, North Carolina. Um, in that you had in Tennessee, you had Knoxville, and then you had Asheville, which were kind of the two mountain towns in that particular region of Appalachia, and uh, Knoxville being very much a place of commerce. It's where University of Tennessee was, so there was academics and scholarship, and then later Oak Ridge, which where they were developing uranium for the atomic bomb. And Asheville was very much, and still is, where wealthy people live. You had the Vanderbilts, Biltmore Estate. It was a place. It was a place where the wealthy resided. Um, Vanderbilts owned vast acreages of land that were their hunting grounds that eventually became part of the Pisgah National Park. So the economic development, and things like when tourism and preservation came to the Great Smokies, you had industries dying, like logging in certain parts of it, while there was still industry going on throughout that part of that kind of Tennessee, North Carolina, particularly the Champion Paper Company in Canton, North Carolina, which actually just recently it had been renamed, and it ended up being kind of closed, not for reasons. It was basically very bad service, because it was Canton, North Carolina was a lumber city for over 100 years. So it's a passing of, it's something that particular town, as much as a town, say, in West Virginia, certain coal mining towns and things like that. I'm wandering quite far afield in this, and not getting to the book, so I apologize for that. But just wanted to give you some of that context. And a place like Asheville, where one of the major settings of, even as we revisit the Grove Park Inn, it's a legendary motel, and it's not a motel, it's a legendary hotel in Asheville. And we see the ways in which certain businesses, certain industries have to adapt to the period of World War II. You had the Great Depression, which was, I think, in a lot of ways for Americans in the 20th century, this defining kind of trauma. And we can see certainly things like the Great Recession. Those are similar traumas that we're still dealing with. And the Great Depression was one that was with the people who endured it for decades. And then going from that into World War II, where so much had fundamentally changed. And in this story, so this is kind of the backdrop for the story. This was a place where not a lot of people are doing not a lot of people are doing tourism during World War II. So how does a location adapt? And all this is kind of the backdrop for the story of the main character of Even As We Breathe, County Sequoyah, and his friend Essie Stamper. And they are both Cherokee, and grew up in Cherokee and in the Qualla boundary, and then are kind of going out into the world to see something else, to have a different experience, to get away from family, to just get something that breaks their norm, in a sense. And this is a book that has a lot of stuff about confinement, enclosures, imprisonment, limitations. It's something that is it's kind of a motif that's running through the book. And it is a kind of like, you've got the World War II setting, and then you've got the backdrop of these two characters, particularly County being the point of view character, and it's given in first person, as kind of recollections of that. So, and he's someone that was born with a deformed leg, a deformed foot, and so we can kind of see this also as a disability narrative, a Native American narrative, and so it's something that's got a lot going on. Also, this is one of the things with the book, is that it's one of these things, like, we believe this to be the first kind of novel ever published by someone from the Eastern Band of the Cherokee Nation. And so that is, it's really crazy to think that this book came out in the most unfortunate year of 2020. But I think it's sold pretty well since then. This is Fireside Industries, which is an imprint of the University of Kentucky. But it's crazy to think about that. And of course, we have to put the caveat, we believe, because there may have been a novelist who was, but we don't know that may have been lost. So many books that get published go out of print, and we lose the history of them. sometimes that history can be suppressed. Think about how much have you heard about, say, the Battle of Blair Mountain in your time. Some of you may have not heard about it before, and some of you did. But there's this kind of, we don't know for sure, but this is, at this point, very clearly that Clap Saddle is the first author to do that. And this is her first novel, and this is one of the more recent books we'll read. And I think it also follows its publication. And it is this kind of desire to show more diverse voices in Appalachian literature, and also in a sense of people from Appalachia wanting to control the narrative and tell their own story, is I think another key thing. This book represents that part of that trend that has happened. Again, thinking about stereotypes and assumptions that mass media or the dominant culture has over the region, and people pushing back against that. I think it is an interesting book. I would say it's a little getting through it is a little telling. It does a little tell and not so much show in places that I think keep it from being as a better novel than it is. But I think it's a good work, and it tells an important perspective, and I think it's an interesting grasp on story. And obviously there are issues of gender, issues of racism, issues of class that are very much at play in here. So I think it's definitely worth a read. Not too long. We'll talk about it over the next couple of weeks. So look forward. This is a new book. First time I'm teaching this. So we always want to mix in some new stuff, some old stuff, some older stuff, some newer stuff. So I look forward to hearing your responses for that. The guiding questions are up. The quiz is up for the first section. So I look forward to your thoughts on this book this week and next. All right. Take care and have a good, wherever you're at, good morning, afternoon, evening, or night.